A guest called a London hotel in Arabic. The receptionist on duty spoke English. Good English, clean, professional, warm. She recognized immediately that the caller was speaking Arabic and did what most people in that situation do. She apologized, said, "One moment, please." The transfer went to the front desk. Nobody there spoke Arabic either. There was a brief, awkward exchange. They held music while someone went to find another person, another option. The caller waited for about 45 seconds. Then they hung up. They booked at another hotel. A property that had, according to a colleague of theirs who stayed there, someone who spoke Arabic on their reservations. The first hotel never found out why they lost that booking. The CRM showed an abandoned call at 6:48 p.m. Nothing more. This is not a story about the receptionist doing something wrong. She did exactly what she should have done, given the situation she was in. This is a story about a situation that hotel had never designed a response to, and about the type of revenue loss that is, by its nature, almost perfectly invisible. My name is Daria. I look at how enterprise businesses, hotels, property firms, professional services handle the full range of the inbound calls. In London specifically, the multilingual question is one of the most operations have not seriously What I want to do in this video is make the invisible visible. Because the cost of getting this wrong is real. It just doesn't show up anywhere that people tend to look. London receives more international visitors than almost any city in the world. As a global finance center, it draws business travelers from Gulf, East Asia, South Asia, Eastern Europe, and North Africa, alongside the more traditional served markets of Western Europe and North America. In hospitality, this means your inbound calls are not monolingual system. A 4-star London property in a business or tourism district is receiving inquiries in Arabic, Mandarin, Hindu, Turkish, Russian, Farsi, and dozens other languages, not occasionally but regularly. The volumes varies by property and location, but in most central and west London hotels, international callers are not an edge case. They're a consistent portion of inbound call making. In property, the same. London's lettings and sales market is heavily international. An estate agent in South Canary Wharf or Mayfair is regularly fielding inquiries from buyers and renters whose primary language is not English. Some of them speak English well enough to conduct a transaction in it, some would strongly prefer not to, a significant number simply don't. And here's the practical reality. In most operations, when a call arrives in a language nobody on duty speaks, the experience the caller gets is a version of what I described in the opening story. An apology, an attempted transfer, hold music, often a disconnected call and booking that goes somewhere. Let's be specific about what happens in that moment, because there are several distinct failure points and each one adds to the probability that the call will end badly for you. First failure point, recognition. The caller starts speaking. The agent realizes they can't help them in the same language. This moment, however brief, signals to the caller that the organization was not prepared for them. That it's not catastrophic on its own. Callers understand that not everybody speaks every language. But it sets a tone. The second failure point, the transfer. "One moment, please," is well intended, but what it communicates is, "You're a problem, we need to route somewhere else." The caller is now in a queue to find out if anyone can help them at all. This is a moment of uncertainty for a caller who was already ready to complete the transaction. The third failure point is hold. Hold music while someone searches for a solution is in most cases ends the call. Not always, but high-intent callers, especially those calling for hotel booking or property viewing, have alternatives. They've done their research. They have other options open. 30 to 60 seconds on hold is enough time to decide that this is not going to work and to close the call. The fourth failure point, the apology. If the call survives to this point and nobody is found who speaks their language, the caller receives an apology, which is polite, but which means we cannot help you in the language you speak, and we have no mechanism to fix that. At each of these 4 points, the probability of losing the booking increases. By the end of the sequence, transfer, hold, apology, probability is very, very high. And the booking goes to whoever had the better answer. The reason this problem persists in most operations is the same reason the after-hours revenue gap persists. The failure leaves almost no trace. The CRM records: call received 6:48 p.m., duration 47 seconds, abandoned. No language flagged, no reason recorded, no follow-up triggered because there is no contact information for a caller who hung up. The hotel simply doesn't know it lost a booking. It doesn't know the caller was Arabic speaking or that the transfer and hold was the reason they left. It doesn't know whether this happens once a week or 5 times per day. It has no data on its multilingual call abandonment rate because the metric doesn't exist anywhere in its reporting. This is a line that captures this precisely. Language barriers don't kill projects overnight. They do it slowly through the misunderstood requirements, delayed decisions, and erode trust. And the case of the hospitality and property through abandoned calls that leaves no trace and no record. The guest who called in Arabic and hung up did not send a complaint. They didn't leave a bad review. They simply went somewhere else. The hotel's TripAdvisor score is unchanged. The front desk team doesn't know it happened. The GM's weekly report looks normal. The failure is clean, no noise, no signal, just a booking that wasn't made. There's research that makes this concrete, and it was spent in a moment on. 60% of businesses have lost at least one international contact or client because of language barrier. The number comes from enterprise research across all sectors. And the follow-on finding is almost more striking. Most of those businesses never found out that was the reason. The client didn't cite language as an issue, they just didn't come back. 76% of buyers prefer to purchase in their native language, given the option. This is not a preference unique to not English speakers, it's a universal pattern. When people can conduct a transaction in their first language, they do. When they can't, a meaningful portion of them don't complete the transaction at all. 40% of buyers won't complete a purchase at all if the option to conduct in their language isn't available. Think about it again. Not slightly less likely, won't complete. For 40% of callers who prefer the language you don't support, the transaction simply doesn't happen. In a London hotel context, even a modest international call volume, say 10 Arabic-speaking callers per month with a 40% non-transaction rate, losing those 4 bookings per month at an average booking value of £250, that's 12k per year from one language. London hotels are receiving calls in multiple languages. The compounding effect of the gap across a full year is a rounding error. Most organizations are not ignoring this problem. They've tried to address it. The approaches they use just don't scale. The most common, hire bilingual staff. In theory, that's straightforward. In practice, finding someone who speaks Arabic and can handle hospitality reservation, who's available for a shift pattern that includes evening, who doesn't turn over within 6 months, this is much harder than it sounds. Unicorns, as one operation director described it, not readily available in the market. The second approach, rely on team members who speaks a bit of relevant languages. This works for basic exchanges. It doesn't work for a complex hotel booking, a property inquiry with specific requirements, or service escalations where the pressure matters. A conversation conducted at the edge of someone's language ability carries a high error rate, as the guest can tell. The third approach, translation tools. Receptionist with Google Translate open. The experience this creates, the pauses, the back and forward, the formatting issues, communicates very clearly to the caller that it is not a normal interaction. It adds friction at exactly the moment you don't want one. None of those approaches are wrong. They are reasonable responses to a real constraint. None of them scale. And none of them work reliably at the moment of inbound call in a language the available team member doesn't speak. Language is not a soft skill, it's an operational infrastructure. The businesses that have figured this out are the ones treating multilingual capacity as a structural requirement, not a nice to have that depends on who happen to be on the shift. For a London hotel group, property firm, a professional service businesses with general international clients exposure, the multilingual call question is worth answering directly operationally. The question is not, do we value our international clients? Of course you do. The question is, when an Arabic-speaking guest calls at 7 p.m. and nobody on the evening shift speaks Arabic, what happens? Is there a reliable answer to that? One that doesn't depend on holding music or pure luck? If the answer is we do our best, that's the honest answer. It's also the answer that costs 40% of those callers the transaction. I've linked below a video that shows what it looks like when a call in a language the receptionist doesn't speak gets handled without a hold, without a transfer, and without an apology. A real call was seen as a comparison point. 3 things I want you to take from this video. First, London's inbound call mix is multilingual. This is not an edge case. Arabic, Mandarin, Hindu, Turkish, Russian, these are consistent languages in London enterprise hospitality and property. A phone system that does handle English calls well and multilingual calls poorly is not handling your full caller base. Second, language failures are invisible. The caller who hung up didn't leave a complaint or a review, they just left. The CRM records nothing useful on this. The loss doesn't appear anywhere as a loss. Third, the current workarounds, bilingual hires, partial language ability, translational tools don't scale. They work occasionally, they fail often. And they create an experience that signals to the caller that the organization was not prepared for them. For the comments. If you manage a hospitality or property operation in London, which languages are you regularly receiving calls in? And what does your team currently do with those calls? I would generally like to know what's common out there. Subscribe for more on this. New videos coming every week. Thank you.